Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing? What day is it? Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, August 31st. Welcome back to Kaijutopia, everybody. I'm Tom, and man, we got a doozy. We got something planned today. It's going to be a pretty fun live stream, I must say. This one is going to be... as I think I wrote somewhere in my notes, you know, to prep for this show today, just go super nerd instinct. Just let your inner geek just fly. Wear it on your sleeve. Just fully embrace it all. Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh, we got Goji King Monsters. This is it. Yeah, Jigzilla, welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Oh yeah, man. So, I mean, I'm gonna go through more of the specifics, like just to lay out like all the, you know, what this stream is really about, like how I'm gonna approach it, because it's basically what I'm doing for today's stream. It's not going to be a VFX based project. It's not going to be stop motion. If you want to see me tackle a Showa Godzilla hero villain rumble, like, feel free to let me know. Now, keep in mind that would be an enormous project. That we're talking something that might take me a million years, but it would look awesome. Odie, what's up, buddy? Yeah, so basically, let me just explain. This is just me talking about who I think would win in an all-out battle between the heroes from the Showa Godzilla film shows versus the villains or antagonists, those that were generally speaking universally at odds with not only Godzilla, but were clearly up to no good. And it's just, if you're familiar with like fantasy fights, like feats, respect threads, and all that sort of stuff, this might be right up your alley. And if it's not something you normally like, it's okay. I'm gonna make things fun. We're all fans here. We're just here to have a good time. And like, obviously, if you disagree with me, first and foremost, you're wrong, because this is going to be the definitive list. I'm sorry. Even if Toho themselves came out and said, Tom over at Kaijutopia, totally wrong. He was wrong about everything. Nope, not true. I am the final say. And everything I just told you for the past 10 seconds is just me having a fun time. I'm kidding. It's all an opinion. As you're gonna see on my coffee mug here, yeah, I may start talking about Godzilla rather like excessively. It's gonna get really, I mean, even for Godzilla fans, this might be a bit much. Oh, Goji Kaiju Monster said, I'm filming my stop motion vid while watching this. Right on, man. Right on. That's how it's done right there. A million years would be worth the wait. Yeah, it just might. You never know. Question, Jigzilla, you have a question. SH Monster, or a Haya Toys. Wait, hang on. I'm trying to see what. Oh, who would I pick? Like between the two of them, which do I prefer? SH Monster Arts or Haya Toys? Oh man, that's kind of tough. I guess it really depends on just. In my case, I'm not just like, I don't just collect figurines just for the sake of it, which again, I do have a whole lot. I am a collector. I mean, if I were to tell you otherwise, well, just look behind me. Like, but I do it mainly to make stop motion projects. And there, if I were to compare the two, like the SH Monster Arts figures, generally speaking, given their more dynamic articulation, posability, I would pick that. But I definitely love the Haya Toys too. I love them both, really. It depends on just what you want for, or, what you're going to use them for. And in my case, it's for mainly stop motion purposes. So I always, make sure to do research ahead of time, plan accordingly, and if I use a lot of Haya Godzilla toy figures too for my projects, and well, you know, those have limitations, but if you prepare, if you know, take that into consideration, you can make it work. See my Godzilla versus Batman stop motion series. Okay, so anyway, let's get to here. I'm gonna go away for a bit. Here we are. Chat, I'm gonna bring you into it so you guys can like participate, or you know, feel like you're part of, you know, history in the making. This video is gonna like totally be remembered for all time, and now you could be part of it. So here's how this works. We got Showa Godzilla Rumble, heroes versus villains. In this massive hypothetical fight, on one side we have the heroes. Okay, so we have Godzilla, of course, Zone Fighter, Mothra, Jaguar, King Caesar, Rodan, Gorosaurus, Anguirus, my boy, Baragon, Manda, Varan, and the son of Godzilla himself, Minilla. Now, you might be thinking Minilla is useless. Why is he here? Trust me, he is not the... I'd say he's actually far more useful than a couple kaiju here on the screen. Now, I gotta tell you guys right away, so you may recognize some of these banners here. I didn't put this together, so I can't take credit for this. I did Photoshop a couple characters on here, and I'm going to talk about them real quick. Mainly for the hero side, you have Zone Fighter. I think it's pretty obvious that he was Photoshopped into this by yours truly. Zone Fighter was added mainly due to the fact that if I were to just pit all these villains up against this group of heroes, the heroes would get absolutely slaughtered. It would not be a fight. It would be extremely one-sided. That's why Zone Fighter is here. And of course, I must say Zone Fighter, he is, in my opinion, the most powerful member of Team Hero. Yeah, I would even put him just a tier above Godzilla, and pound for pound, this Godzilla is one of the strongest Godzilla versions out there. I can get into that more, of course. But another kaiju I decided to add to Team Villain to even things out is King Kong. But first, a complete list of all the villains. We got King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, Hedorah, King Kong, Megalon, Gigan, Titanosaurus, Kumonga, Ebirah, Gabara, Kamacuras, and the most powerful character in the entire, in not just the Showa-ERA, but in all of the Godzilla Pantheon folks, we have the giant Condor. I understand he's a little cut off. His name is cut off at the bottom there. The reason why is because we're trying to, you know, hold his OP, his power level in check, but it's not going to be enough. The giant Condor is here, and he's terrifying. Just look at him. He's right up here in the top right, just slowly, he's just silently judging us. Okay, so oh, Logan had a good question. Why Monkey bad? Monkey is on Team Villain for the explicit purpose that for being in an antagonistic role against Godzilla, and yeah, you know what? I'm not going to spoil too much, but there might be another scenario that I will address later in this stream. But yeah, Kong is there to even things up. He wasn't originally part of this banner. He's over here. Maybe the chat, you're blocking him a little bit. You should feel pretty sorry for yourselves for doing this to poor Kong, but there he is. Okay. Alright, so this is a big blank screen. I'm going to bring my beautiful self back here. Okay, so chat, we're going to go over some of the rules here, and I must say, I understand rules can be a little boring, but bear with me. It's worth it. We'll go through this super fast. Rule number 1, most recent versions of the characters. So, for example, we're going to be using the adult Mothra from when we last saw her in Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. That way we're not ending up using the very first Mothra, who, when it comes to sizes, is quite enormous. And of course, I wrote here, since the continuity on King Kong Escapes is iffy, King Kong in this battle will be from the King Kong vs. Godzilla movie, so I'm not going to be citing King Kong Escapes or anything. This is Mechagodzilla from Terror of Mechagodzilla, and the Gorosaurus we will be using, talking about in this whole big fantasy video here, is going to be from Destroy All Monsters. Chat, feel free to add anything. Let me know who I'm missing, if there's anything I need to, go over anything. Couple things. Oh, hold on. I see a good question here. Maybe more of a statement. One last question. Do you think my profile looks epic, or do you think I need to update it? Oh, Jigzilla, I think your profile looks pretty good. Okay. Rule number 2. Path to victory, aka how the teams can win. They can win by unaliving their opponent, incapacitating their opponent. I mean, just think like a 10 count or something like that. And forcing the opponent to flee. Looking at Gigan there, Gigan has the habit of leaving the moment things do not work out for him. Number 3, this is just me. I understand we all have very different methods when it comes to determining who would win or who's more powerful. But guys, for me, empirical feats reign supreme. They take priority. Expositional claims take a back seat. I do not care if you have some obscured guidebook lying around somewhere that states Godzilla once ripped a fart and split the planet in half, killing the dinosaurs. It needs to have happened on screen. It needs to be something we can quantify. I will come back to this shortly, I'm sure. Okay, Odie, what's up, buddy? Was the Kamacuras in the villain side? Yes, I added Kamacuras to the villain side. Okay. Rule number 4, characters are fighting in character. So by this I mean characters can't use their powers and abilities in a way that we've never seen them use their powers before. For example, Jaguar is capable of quickly changing his size. We know this, but in his movie we never saw him suddenly shrink down to the size of a human, fly down Megalon's throat, only to exponentially increase his size to the point where the Seatopian deity comes down with a sad case of explosion. Now, could Jaguar do this? Sure, it's possible, but it's not plausible because he never did it in the movie. Keep in mind, though, we've seen Jaguar do that in the comics, but we're counting just the movies and the Zone Biter TV show. Okay, so this is going to be tricky, and I'm going to have to address this more later, but how do I win? Like, I went over the path to victory, like unaliving your opponent. That's how the monsters, could win in this fight, but like, how do we really determine who wins? And the Godzilla's honest truth is we don't. This is just for fun again, but I'm going to give you a couple verdicts in the end of all of this because I do my homework and I'm awesome. But to determine how many wins each team is given, I simplified everything by asking simply, in a one-on-one fight or with some variable in this massive battle working in their favor, could, for example, Zone Fighter beat every single villain, like one-on-one? And I think the answer will be yes. Now, I'm not saying that would happen always. I'm not saying it's like out of 10. I just mean, like, is it possible that Zone Fighter could beat a single villain, like every single villain one-on-one? I think so. Since there are 12 villains total, I gave Zone Fighter like 12 wins, but we'll get to this later. Number 6, no outside interference. Seems pretty self-explanatory, but what this means is no outside force is allowed to interfere. However, similar to NASCAR, I spelt that wrong, forgive me, I'm allowing pit stops for characters that may need a recharge and or repair. But that's where you guys come in. I'm trusting you. I am trusting chat. You guys are going to like step up and like give me something, give me some major assistance here. Finally, the battleground is Tokyo. Not only is Tokyo the battleground, but Tokyo Bay, Mount Fuji, and the skies above, and I'm gonna just say the ground, the earth under too, since we have some kaiju that love to burrow, that's all included. Logan Murray says, so they're fighting fighting Royal Rumble style, not a big Avengers charge. I mean, I don't really think there's too much of a distinction, to be honest. I mean, they're all there in the same place. They're all in Tokyo. And as soon as we start, and our dear friend Dr. Sarazawa is going to get this ball rolling. Let them fight. The problem, of course, is there's just a lot of chaos that's going to be happening. So, you know, yeah, how about this? Let's go over this real quick. Everybody knows that because there's 12 kaiju on each side, right? So 24 kaiju in all that are in Tokyo, and they're all about to battle. I mean, they're not going to betray each other on purpose, but I'm not saying like Ghidorah just spamming his gravity beams from the beginning. If he hit any of his allies, would it hurt them? Yes. It's not like if Godzilla tripped and hurt his toe and fired an atomic blast and pour Anguirus' face, it would likely hurt Anguirus. So with all this chaos happening, the best way I could really make a sort of, I'd say, a video like this with confidence is I'm going to say that most of these kaiju break off into 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 battles. You guys are free at any point to just throw out who you think would fight who do you think would be a good matchup. You can let me know who I think would win between, you know, whoever you come up with, because I promise you, chances are you guys are going to throw out ideas that I will not be reading off, that I haven't preemptively prepared. That's the whole point of this, this show. We're here to have fun. So feel free, throw something out, let me know. But with all this chaos, I decided to come up with two sort of ways in which we could have a different victory here. So either there's one way the heroes can win, and that will break off into different one-on-one fights. Not all of them are one-on-one, but bear with me. And then I'm going to get to explaining how I think the villains can win. So first, we're going to go down the path of, let's see. Let's go down, let's explain how I think the heroes can win, let's do it. Okay, so Godzilla and Stuff Productions just said literally none of the heroes can physically touch Hedorah. I disagree with that, but I think you and I would probably align in the end on the overall verdict. We'll get to Hedorah soon. But here's my round one matchups. For round one, during all this carnage, we have Godzilla going after Mechagodzilla. Mothra and Rodan take to the skies after King Ghidorah. Zone Fighter is fighting Hedorah and King Kong. King Caesar goes after Megalon. Varan goes after Gabara. Anguirus versus Ebirah. Gorosaurus takes on Titanosaurus. Now there's a good fight. Manda versus Kumonga. Baragon taking on Kamacuras. Jaguar versus Gigan. And Minilla is squaring off against the giant Condor. Oh man, I don't like Manilla's chances there. Giant Condor, again, OP. Alright, let's begin, shall we? Now, this is how I think the heroes can achieve victory here. Here are two ways Godzilla could win. First, by activating his magnetism, Godzilla could start the fight off against King Ghidorah or Gabara in order to draw their electricity, to absorb it, as even though in the beginning of the Showa Godzilla films, Godzilla seemed to be either weak or kind of like just more susceptible to electricity, but later on in the Showa era, he took a page from the King Kong playbook and like suddenly learned how to like electricity. It literally turned him into a magnet. So I think this is one way Godzilla could win, is by whipping out those magnetism powers. But the problem is they seem to be activated by electricity. So, with King Ghidorah and Gabara on the battlefield, this could be a possibility. And, as Odie writes here, Godzilla quite literally destroyed Mechagodzilla in Terror of Mechagodzilla. That was without the magnet amplification. Absolutely. I agree with that. Now, I think before I get to that part, I'm going to just finish this off by stating, why didn't Godzilla use his magneto powers in Terror of Mechagodzilla? And it's likely due to the fact that the screenwriter just conveniently forgot that he did that, which is okay. Yeah, I've been there, done that. But also there were no thunderstorms to my knowledge. Like, Godzilla was never exposed to electricity in Terror of Mechagodzilla. So my theory here would fall apart if something like that were to happen. But since there's no argument against it, I'm going with that being the main way to activate his magnetism as of right now, is by him being just exposed to electricity. But hey, let's take another look at this. Godzilla charges full speed, just goes straight at Mechagodzilla. Now, I think Mechagodzilla is going to answer with, his classic Mechagodzilla all-out attack, but we know for a fact that Godzilla can survive it. And when he gets in close, Godzilla needs to go straight to ripping off Mechagodzilla's head. And, of course, Mechagodzilla, well, we know he kind of has a second head ready to fire a laser beam, so yeah, Godzilla still needs to be careful, but I do think Godzilla can win the day here. But he has to immediately charge. He can't hesitate. It's Tokyo, so there will be some cover. And to answer Godzilla and Stuff Productions, your question, is this 75 or destroy all monsters, Goji? This is 75. That is, well, hang on. It's a little tricky here. I'm going to bring myself back just so you can see my emotion. When we look, chronologically speaking, Destroy All Monsters takes place in 1999. So that Godzilla technically is older than the one we see in 1975 when he fought Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus. So technically, since we're using the most recent versions, and by that I mean in story, in universe, not like the most recent one would be, by my standards, 1975. But that's not what I meant when I was going over the rules, talking about the most recent ones, with, of course, exceptions with King Kong and such. So, let me put this simply. Godzilla from Destroy All Monsters is the most recent Godzilla from the Showa-ERA. That's when we technically last see him. So that's who we're going to pick. But everything he does in 1975, we're just going to attribute that to Destroy All Monsters Godzilla. I hope that helps. Gonna smoothly remove my screen here. There we go. All right. So anyway, that's who I think could win this fight. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I think Mechagodzilla will still give Godzilla hell, and I just want everybody to understand, I don't think this is a walk in the park. If you think Mechagodzilla would win this fight, I'm not really going to debate you much, because I kind of think he has a good shot too. But I do think Godzilla at his peak, with or even without magnetism, without his magnetic powers, I think Godzilla does come up with a, I'd say a very fair majority here. Logan wrote, Mechagodzilla was incapacitated when my pronunciation skills, Katsura, killed herself, causing him to shut down. That technically means we don't know if Godzilla could have beaten him. Okay, I think that's kind of fair, but at the same time, you can maybe make the argument that without Katsura, Mechagodzilla wouldn't be able to function anyway, so if she's not here, then what? Is he gonna just go offline? I don't think that debunks just, my rationale here, but I do think what you wrote is important to consider. And if you would like us to revisit this, especially when we go over how, a path to victory for the villains, feel free to remind me, Logan, and that would be good to go over. Okay, works for me. Being Destroy All Monsters Goji would just make him stronger, LOL, which makes his bum rush of Mechagodzilla far more viable. Oh, cool. Glad we agree on that. I think Godzilla could have done some Mortal Kombat shit and ripped Mechagodzilla's heart out through his stomach. Okay, that's awesome. Alright, the next fight. King Ghidorah takes on Mothra and Rodan. Alright, these symbols right here, simply put, I don't think there's going to be a definitive winner here, because Mothra and Rodan need to take inspiration from Godzilla -1's core theme, survival. They're not in it to win it. They're simply trying to buy their heavy hitters time to wrap up their fights and then come over to help. Of course, this will not be easy. I just want people to realize that I don't want anyone here to think that I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to suggest that. Hang on. I'm just gonna make myself go away. No one wants to see me anyway. We're all here for the kaiju. I don't want you guys to think that I think that King Ghidorah from the Showa era is weak. I know I've clashed with some of you in the past, because some of you incorrectly believe that King Ghidorah can shatter planets, like he can destroy them or something. And that's because, well, it's kind of the film's fault for saying he's a world killer, but he can't destroy a planet like how the Death Star from Star Wars makes planets explode. He's a civilization ender. We don't know how long it would take him to end, say, all civilization on Earth. But yeah, if anyone really wants to have this chat, fight me. I am down. If you really want to talk about why you think King Ghidorah, if you really seriously think he deserves that sort of classification of being a planet buster, or you're gonna tell me, oh yeah, Ghidorah, he feats be damned, or lack thereof, he has none of actually blowing up or destroying a world right before our eyes. But yeah, I'm ready. That's what we're here for. Let's do it. But that Tom ramble aside, the truth is here, I do think Rodan and Mothra can give Ghidorah a pretty good fight. I do think for a time they will successfully be able to keep Ghidorah tied up, because this is adult Mothra, and let's not forget, adult Mothra is pretty strong. The one Godzilla fought and killed, well, that one was dying. She was old. But the younger Mothra, the one we saw in Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, just with one slap of her wing, she sent Godzilla flying back. So she packs some serious strength, I think. Godzilla and Stuff Productions writes, this is getting into power scaling stuff, so I won't get into it because it's not really what we're doing here. But Ghidorah scales really high and is definitely one of the strongest Showa villains. However, there's nothing to claim he has the destructive power to blow up a planet. Yeah, I mean, if you do see me, power scaling, that might be a different video or a different time for me to, like, really unpack, because, like you, I've thought a lot about it because, you know, again, it's just fun. It's fun stuff. But power scaling, if we were to really get into that, I think we would potentially derail this entire fun experiment. I'm not opposed to it. I do it all the time. I do scale. I do, you know, keep that into consideration. And usually, I gotta be honest, I do factor it. But it's definitely not really something I'm gonna be deep diving into just yet. But I do agree, King Ghidorah is one of the strongest Showa-era kaiju. If we're going to come back here for a second at Team Villain, let me scroll up here. Honestly, King Ghidorah is probably, if I were to really rank him, he's definitely in the top 3. I could argue that Mechagodzilla and Hedorah are maybe not as... I think Mechagodzilla has more effective firepower, and Hedorah is just nigh impossible to kill. Even though, again, technically Ghidorah might be able to do it, because Hedorah happens to be vulnerable to electricity, so that could work. So yeah, if you feel like King Ghidorah is number 1, that's fine. If you want to say he's the strongest on this entire team, I'm not really going to argue, because I think he's ridiculously strong. So it's fine by me. Let's see, Logan writes, the problem is Ghidorah might not be able to beat them in the sky, but Ghidorah can definitely beat them on the ground. Rodan and Mothra have to find a way to ground Ghidorah and attack from the sky. And that's why I'm leaving this with no definitive winner right now, because, again, Mothra and Rodan are just trying to buy time. And I think they're capable of it. Rodan, unlike future variants from like Final Wars and such, Showa Rodan is right up. He's on par with Godzilla. He is quite a bruiser, I think. Basically, Godzilla with wings, right? Minus an atomic breath. So I think he's going to be able to put up a pretty good fight. We do know that Ghidorah can definitely take Rodan down. So if this were one-on-one, I'd be giving you a completely different verdict. But with Mothra on his side, I think they can hold down the fort. Zone Fighter versus King Kong and Hedorah. Okay. I know some of you are still going to be talking about Ghidorah and, you know, and such. I'm a King Ghidorah big fan, so if you guys want to keep talking about that, feel free. Moving on, we have Zone Fighter taking on King Kong and Hedorah. And, ooh, Brandon writes, wait a minute, Showa Kong ain't no villain. I mean, I guess it depends. I think it could be argued he would have been seen as a villain in the eyes of, you know, the human race. But he's more of an antagonist against Godzilla, which is why he's on Team Villain. But I know Kong fans, I'm telling you, I gotcha. King Kong might have a couple surprises for you tonight, so just bear with me. Or ape with me. I don't know. That was a terrible attempt at humor. Okay. Here's how Zone Fighter can win against King Kong and Hedorah. Now, I just want to say, even though this is, again, a scenario that I've gone through where the heroes can win, the heroes will not win every single fight. This is just for the greater good. When we come across one where the heroes lose their fight, it's all for the greater good. But for now, Zone Fighter, he's taking on Hedorah, who is, I think, the most dangerous villain on the villain team, and then King Kong, who is physically one of the strongest Showa-era kaiju. But I think Zone Fighter is stronger, I think he's faster, and he's packing way more firepower, more than enough to drive Kong away, he's gonna force Kong to keep his distance. But let's not forget, Zone Fighter has what is called the Meteor Freezer. He can actually freeze his opponents. And I'm not saying that's enough to stop Hedorah, like, permanently, but I don't think there's any evidence that suggests that Hedorah would be highly resistant to freezing attacks. So, for example, if, like, Kiryu Mechagodzilla showed up and just blasted Hedorah with the absolute zero cannon, do you guys think Hedorah could survive that? Not that I think Zone Fighter's freezer attack is on par with the absolute zero cannon, but I just want to know what you guys think. But some of you have already, either you've read ahead or you're all like super smart and just light years ahead of me anyway, but like, another thing here is that despite Hedorah being the most dangerous member of his team, he's also a massive liability to a lot of Earth-based kaiju, Kong in particular. Hedorah's mere presence would, I think, make Kong very, very sick. So I do think that gives Zone Fighter an advantage here, because he's taking on two opponents, one of whom is going to start coming down with a, I don't know, he's gonna have his lungs on fire in no time from the sort of toxic pollution Hedorah will be generating. But he's also going to be blasting them with his meteor missiles. He's going to be keeping them at a distance with high-powered lasers. He's strong enough to go toe-to-toe against Kong. But here's the problem with Zone Fighter. He has only 110 seconds of energy to work with. So whether he wins this battle or not, and I do believe he would, he's going to be out of power for the next round. That's right, Zone Fighter, the hero, the most powerful hero on Team Showa. He's gonna be out. He's sitting out the next round. But for now, this is how I think this one would go. What do you guys think? And yeah, he does have a timer like Ultraman, but Ultraman's timer can go like I think 3 minutes. So 180 seconds for Ultraman, but poor Zone Fighter's, he's only at 110. So that's a bummer. Let's see. I want to try and get back. This is why I'm happy that I put up you guys on the chat here. Let's see if I can adjust this just so you guys can read what you guys are writing. Okay. So Logan thinks Hedorah would have his icy chunks be vaporized, and I think Zone could absolutely do that. Okay, cool. Hey, say Mechagodzilla literally beats Hedorah by flying the gooey fella out to space. Oh yeah, the Godzilla Legends reference there. I love that. Man, that is such a good comic. Godzilla. Okay, so there's this comic from Godzilla Legends where Godzilla and Mechagodzilla team up against Hedorah, and it's amazing. You guys should totally check it out if you haven't yet. All right, let's get to the next one while I still am able to talk. All right, you'll notice that I didn't really make notes here because I could be persuaded to give the win here to Megalon. But hear me out on this, okay? I have to put down my coffee, okay? So, how do I put this? Megalon is as powerful as he is stupid. I know that's going to be harsh. I understand. I'm a big fan of Megalon. I love him. I want to see him come back. He was amazing in the most recent Gemstone Godzilla vs. Megalon video. Another awesome, cool thing to check out if you haven't already. But Megalon is not a smart kaiju. He's actually really easily distracted. He's a bruiser. He's honestly one of the most powerful villains Godzilla has ever fought. And if Megalon were a more rational thinking, more tactically disciplined fighter, I'd argue he could take on Hedorah. Again, if he was a more intelligent fighter, but he's not. I think this gives King Caesar a pretty good edge. And not to mention, King Caesar was able to survive Mechagodzilla's onslaught. So I think even I think despite how powerful Megalon is, I don't think his attacks are going to be enough to put King Caesar down for the count. And both kaiju love fighting in close quarters combat, and King Caesar is, well, pretty strong in that arena. I think he even... Okay, guys, help me here. I know I'm like the big shot expert and such, and I totally am, but I do believe King Caesar, after repeatedly ramming into Mechagodzilla, was able to damage, MG's Space Titanium, which is pretty durable. So anyway, I think King Caesar wins this fight. What do you guys think? Are there any Megalon supporters here that wish to speak? Wish to, I guess, make me reconsider this, or are we pretty much on the same page? Oh, Logan, I apologize. You wrote earlier, Zone Fighter has to use all the most powerful weapons in the beginning to win this. Also, does his timer reset if he makes it to the next round? Okay, so that first part, yes, I do concur. I think Zone Fighter would use his most powerful weapons because just based on from what I've seen, he's a highly efficient, effective fighter. Unlike Megalon, Zone Fighter is actually pretty smart and will use his powers and abilities in a way that many of us would use them. And as for his time reset, if I remember correctly, I do think he can make it to the next round. But I did mention, kind of similar to NASCAR, that he does have some outside help that could recharge, but per the show, even that takes some time. So I don't know how much time would pass in between rounds, but I think by the time we get to the final round, Zone Fighter will be back at full strength. Godzilla and Stuff Production seems to agree. I think Caesar takes it. Logan wrote, I wish Gemstone Godzilla would get a movie. Same. I think Megalon would be completely taken aback by a beam reflection, which is ironically kind of hilarious because King Caesar can absorb beams, but you gotta understand, he needs them to be directly fired into his eyes. I mean, there's this moment where Mechagodzilla actually did shoot him right in the face, and King Caesar went down. So while yes, he has the means of, his eyes absorbing Megalon's lightning blast and then reflecting them back at him, I wouldn't put much stake in whether or not Caesar would do that reliably, but it does seem like we are all in a similar consensus. Which brings me to the next battle, Varan versus Gabara. So, guys, I gotta say, I'm an expert on this one. Gabara, being he's a redhead, and us redheads we wield incredible power. All right, so I really am not that impressed by Varan. I don't really think he did a whole lot to make me think that he could withstand Gabara, like just grabbing him and then pumping him full of electricity, which was enough to make even Godzilla, like, give Godzilla a hard time. And this was kind of around the time when Godzilla started becoming more resistant to electricity as well. So, guys, I don't think Varan has much of a shot here. He could maybe fly around and try to, you know, get Gabara to accidentally hit, I don't know, Godzilla with his electricity, but yeah, I don't have much on this one. I think the Ginger Ogre takes it. Don't mind me, I'm just refueling, guys. I need more energy, man. Woo! What? We're already more than 40 minutes into this, and wow. Wow. Okay. We're making things happen today, aren't we? Alright, okay. This next fight, I think, is a bit more interesting. I just want people... I'm going to write this right here. Ebirah should not be underestimated. However, Anguirus is... let's not forget, Anguirus was able to make Ghidorah's neck bleed, and he's durable enough to take on some serious damage. Okay, so I do think Ebirah can really give Anguirus a pretty good fight here, and honestly, this might be one of my favorite fights of the first round. But I do think the moment Ebirah starts getting his, his claws ripped off, and I think Anguirus is most certainly strong enough to do that. He has the bite strength. I think at that point, Ebirah's days are numbered, because the moment he doesn't have his claws, especially his giant one, what threat does Ebirah seriously pose to all the kaiju that are still on the board? I don't think he can do much without those claws, and even with those claws, I don't really think he's going to be able to do a whole lot either. But yeah, so what do you guys think about this one? That's a fair point. Anguirus survived getting his face mangled by Gigan's chainsaw. Well, more like, yeah, his buzzsaw. Yeah, you're right. Kind of funny. Okay, so this is going to be a little... Just because I'm that kind of fan, when you watch that scene very closely, you could see the blood coming out of Gigan's claw, his arm, and not Anguirus, but obviously we know it's meant to be Anguirus's blood, but that's how the special effects team made that happen. I thought, why not share that? Yeah, don't worry, I'm not the kind of fan who takes very obvious, maybe visual effects goofs and tries to apply that as a sort of feat or new power and ability to a kaiju. Okay, I used to be that fan, but then I once realized, real quick, back to King Ghidorah versus Mothra and Rodan here. In Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, when Rodan flies headfirst into Ghidorah, if you watch very closely, Rodan, the Rodan prop, its head just gets ripped off. And then in the next scene, Rodan's head is fine, which means he can regenerate like Deadpool, right? Alice, welcome. Glad you can make it. Okay. Oh yeah, Titanosaurus size, the size changing. Okay, yeah. Speaking of Titanosaurus, let's get to this one. I think we're all pretty much in agreement that Anguirus should be able to win that fight. So now, initially, I was kind of more prepared to like give the win to Gorosaurus here, but that's right. We're giving another win to the villains. I think Titanosaurus can do pretty much anything Gorosaurus can do, but better. First, let me give some credit where credit is due. Gorosaurus, especially the one we see in Destroy All Monsters, is a beast. This guy rushed King Ghidorah and with just the strength of his jaws managed to shake Ghidorah down and actually bring him down, do what Godzilla and Anguirus struggled to do. And then later, can we really take a moment and just point out Gorosaurus's kangaroo kick is destructive. It is highly effective. It is a super kick. And with it, he brought King Ghidorah down. After kicking Ghidorah down, Ghidorah never got back up. Okay, so granted, Ghidorah was being, flanked on all sides by Godzilla and Anguirus, but we even saw Ghidorah try to get back up, and he couldn't, and I wouldn't say it's anything Godzilla and Anguirus did. So, Gorosaurus has enough power in his kick to make even King Ghidorah struggle to get back on his feet. That is noteworthy. Unfortunately, Titanosaurus was able to kick Godzilla and send him flying like what seemed to be like a quarter of a mile. Titanosaurus is strong enough to lift Godzilla up with just the strength of his neck muscles. And he has greater reach with his claws. Gorosaurus is many things. I think a physical beast, a powerhouse, it could be argued. But I do think Titanosaurus can pretty much match not only everything Goro can do, but he could do a much better job. So my win here is going to Titanosaurus. That seems to be the consensus here as well. Yeah, I think, okay, this was really good. I think Godzilla and Stuff Productions, you're on point here. I think the problem here is that Titano is in no way letting Goro land that kick. I agree. I do not think Titanosaurus is going to give Gorosaurus the chance. Let's not forget, Titanosaurus can close that distance in a heartbeat. He's not against just jumping across a vast distance, mind you, and just body slamming his opponents. So yeah. Is Titano a female or male? Honestly, I don't know. I'm just calling Titanosaurus a he, but, Titanosaurus could very well be a female. There's something about Titanosaurus's design that might... Okay, Joey, I'm moving on. So Alice writes, who is overall winning? Alice, right now I'm going through a scenario in which the heroes could win. So everything I've been doing for the past, 25 minutes has been about how the heroes could win this. I hope that answers your question. In this fight, we have Kumonga versus Manda. Manda, unfortunately, suffers the same problem as Varan. Manda did not really do that much noteworthy things. I mean, I know he once wrapped around the Gatango and Atragon. That's about it. He, you just look at the picture. In this picture, he's strangling a bridge. He made that bridge collapse. Wow, that's about it. With that said, I do believe Manda deserves better, And if I were to ever, if you ever, I think he's coming up in an upcoming Godzilla Rivals comic. So hopefully Manda, it can really show what he's capable of, or she, it. But yeah, Kumonga is pretty up there. I mean, it took the combined atomic rays of both Godzilla and Minilla to put him down. And Kumonga fared pretty well against Godzilla too. Although Godzilla was behaving kind of out of character, if you ask me. I think Godzilla, like in his prime, like just like how we see him in Destroy All Monsters, would absolutely light Kumonga up and then some. But yeah. Ooh, Alice, thoughts on the current situation in the Godzilla fan base? What is the current situation? That could mean a lot of things, so please be a bit more explicit, and I'll do my best to give you an honest answer. Odie wrote, Kumonga is a hero though. He fought with the Monster Island monsters against Ghidorah. Look, I'm not against that. I honestly would say Kumonga was fighting for his own self-preservation. But when we go back here to the original, I did not design this other than adding Kong and Zone Fighter respectively. This is... I can't even remember what this is from. If any of you have the answer, let me know. But here's Kumonga right here in the back. That, he was in a... Kumonga was in a antagonistic role against Godzilla, so that's why he's on Team Villain. The next fight is Baragon taking on Kamacuras, and I think Baragon can torch Kamacuras, just burn the giant praying mantis alive, and do you guys object? Do you guys think that's wrong? I mean, I really don't have much more to add to that. Yeah, I really do think Baragon's winning this fight too. Oh, and Alice, you specified, I mean, like what with Kaiju Kim? Ooh. Yeah, so long story short, I'll just make this quick. I agree with everything Kaiju Kim had to say. And the problem with the Godzilla fan base is a problem that goes beyond just us being a Godzilla fan base. It kind of touches upon societal issues that you could just remove Godzilla from the topic altogether, and then that's where we go from here. But that's my quick answer. I can give you a more I can give you a more like in-depth response at a different time, but that's the short answer. But yeah. Anyway, Bug Barbecue, yep. Okay, this one is probably a bit more heated, so guys, if you disagree, please lay it on me. So far, I think I'm undefeated. And by that I mean I think we generally all agree anyway, but like... Sorry. I'm just trying to be a bit more antagonistic. Is it working? I mean, it's like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. Normally I'm just more like far more easygoing, even for something like this. So let me know if it's annoying, so I can do it more and just agitate you guys so you can keep watching it, because that'll make the YouTube algorithmic god think I'm actually yeah, anyway. Jet Jaguar versus Gigan. So, we kind of saw this in Godzilla versus Megalon. The problem is, by the time Gigan joined the fight, Jet Jaguar and Megalon had already been fighting, and I will come more back to this later, but Megalon had the edge in that fight. Megalon literally had Jet Jaguar like on the ground when Gigan showed up. At that point, it was 2-on-1, and it was just, well, one-sided. here's the thing. Later in the fight, after Godzilla joined, Jet Jaguar was able to literally, like, it looked like break or dislocate Gigan's arm. And even was strong enough to lift Gigan's body, like, right above him. So, I think when you take that into account, honestly, and of course Gigan's entire, like... Okay, I'm going to write it right here. The moment things get tough, Gigan retreats. Like, a lot. I feel like, I honestly do believe that the moment Jet Jaguar starts gaining the upper hand in this fight and things are not going his way, Gigan is going to hightail it out of there. With the possibility of having his arm dislocated. And I don't really think Gigan has much in his arsenal that's shown that it's going to actually hurt, like, Jet Jaguar. Honestly, what... Okay, so Gigan is capable of making Godzilla bleed. Do we think Godzilla is more durable than Jet Jaguar? What do you guys think? I think I may have spoken... I definitely may have jumped the gun there. So, what do you guys think? Do we think Gigan, at least, like, if he managed to get a clean shot in with his buzzsaw, do you think he could seriously hurt the robot? Ooh, Odie, apologies. I didn't see your comment from before. I don't know if I agree with Baragon beating Kamacuras. One of them survived Godzilla's atomic breath, and Baragon's torch isn't a beam that's used for fighting. You know, Odie, you might be onto something, especially since I remember we, in Frankenstein Conquers the World, Baragon's heat ray didn't even damage Frankenstein's... well, he had taken what I believe were elk skin, deer skin, to create clothing, like, and Baragon's heat ray technically couldn't even damage or singe that, so whew, you might be onto something, but honestly, I can't see the Kamacuras hurting Baragon, so even if we take the heat ray away, I do think Baragon should be able to eventually gain the upper hand in that sort of fight. So, but let me know what you think, if you still think Baragon loses or not. Logan writes, I think for this fight, Gigan could win, but he would actually have to risk himself in order to kill Jet Jaguar, which he would not be willing to do, as you stated earlier. He's a coward. And Joey S says, I don't know how to feel about this one. Joey, you and I both, man. I mean, honestly, this is the fight that I kind of had me... It's a real head scratcher. I'm gonna give JJ the win here. However... I'm going to just concede this could easily go either way, but for now, I'm giving Jet Jaguar the win. If there are any strong objections, just hit that like button. If you agree with me, hit that like button. Oh my gosh. Okay. Minilla versus Giant Condor. Now, Minilla is fully capable of winning this and would absolutely win this, but I gotta admit, Giant Condor can be really ludicrously, like, I think the Giant Condor can, well, first off, it's extremely aggressive. I mean, it will get right in your face and try and, like, slash out your eyes and stuff. So even though I think Minilla can win this, and just with one shot of his atomic breath, I think the giant Condor is done. But Minilla, poor Minilla, is gonna get really scraped in this fight. I mean, it's not gonna be funny. It's gonna be. I mean, honestly, guys, there's a big chance in this fight that if Godzilla is able to, the moment he sees his son in trouble, man. Oh man, I would hate to be that kaiju, that bad kaiju who's picking on Minilla, because if Godzilla is nearby and he sees it and he has a chance to, you know, step in, you're done, son. You are done. But yeah, I think Minilla wins this, but he's gonna have scars. Absolutely. Okay, so hello, I'm back. Well, I've been here all along, but now you get to see me. All right.
I'm not sure I understand.
Siri, I'm streaming right now. Go away. Apologies, everybody. AI, what can I say? It's becoming a problem. All right, so we've now entered round 2. In round 2, the monsters that are still on the board. For Team Hero, we have Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, Zone Fighter, but he's currently out of energy, so he's sitting this one out. Hedorah, in my opinion, would be on ice, so Zone Fighter's sacrifice, or not sacrifice, but Zone Fighter's efforts are not in vain. But we're talking about heroes, sorry. King Caesar is gone. So that leaves us Jaguar, Anguirus, Baragon, and Minilla. And team villains, we got King Ghidorah, Hedorah, Titanosaurus, Gabara, and Kumonga. Okay. I think after beating Mechagodzilla, I think Godzilla is going to go help Mothra and Rodan take on King Ghidorah. And even though it might seem like this is a sort of like a rematch, a repeat of, you know, the Ghidorah three-headed monster third act, one thing to consider here is I think Godzilla did get stronger as the Showa-ERA progressed. So by the time Destroy All Monsters came around, I think Godzilla was a lot more powerful, a lot stronger than he was earlier. But then again, King Ghidorah is still a beast, and honestly, even though I do think Godzilla could beat King Ghidorah one-on-one, it's so close that I would still give Ghidorah a slight edge, especially if we're saying like out of 3 fights or out of 5 or 7. But with adult Mothra and Rodan there, I think the classic trio here could definitely take King Ghidorah down. What do you all think? Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan versus King Ghidorah. Who wins? Oh shoot. Godzilla and Stuff Productions, I apologize. I've been apologizing a lot despite, trying to play the role of being a know-it-all. A selfish know-it-all who totally knows everything. You wrote Gigan is immortal, Zone Fighter episode. I don't think that really changes much. I mean, technically Godzilla could be considered immortal, but I think there's a difference between being immortal and invincible. So unless Gigan gets his claws significantly damaged, he can't die. I mean, this could also be a matter of like, okay, it kind of sounds like a no limits fallacy, and by that I mean I'm pretty sure we can all come up with creative ways for Gigan to die, even if it seems like that wouldn't have exactly worked. I mean, if we somehow we removed Gigan's claws but kept them safe. And then we threw Gigan into the center of the sun. Gigan's a goner, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't think I would agree with that. And even still, that doesn't mean he can't be beaten. It doesn't mean he can't be overpowered. He can't be incapacitated, which he most certainly was. Time after time, we've seen that happen. But yeah, technically, the Gigan we would be using in this tournament would be the one that we saw from Zone Fighter. So let me know what you think. I mean, I think you've raised a pretty good, interesting issue, and well, my mind is not made up on it, so you might be able to persuade me. You did right. Okay, so in Destroy All Monsters, regarding King Ghidorah, it took everybody to really take Ghidorah out, so it wouldn't be a wash with just the 3. I mean, I'm going to be really technical with you. Despite all those monsters being present at Mount Fuji, most of them sat out. It was mainly Godzilla, Anguirus, and Gorosaurus that were doing most of the fighting. Rodan was there, but he really stayed out of it, unfortunately. We did see Mothra and Kumonga show up, and they only showed up in the end to bombard Ghidorah's already pretty much dead body with their webbing. And yeah, Minilla was there too, but he didn't really step in until Ghidorah had already been beaten. So yeah, I mean, just swap out Gorosaurus and Anguirus with Mothra and Rodan in that final fight. And yeah, I think if that Mothra is fully grown, adult, imago, I think Ghidorah eventually either gets beaten or has to flee. Logan, you're hilarious. It's okay to be a know-it-all for now because I agree with you. I see what you did there. That was too bright, camera. Too bright. Okay. I do think the trio would beat Ghidorah here, but I do think Ghidorah would hold his own against Godzilla at his peak. Let's come back to this one because I think that's a really good one to get into. Varan, Baragon, and Manda just sat in the background. Yeah, pretty much. I think there was once more... I think the filmmakers were planning on having Baragon play a greater role. However, there was something wrong with the suit because they borrowed it for Ultraman, I believe. If that's true. If it's not true, if you know any better, guys, feel free to, correct me. This is like a super educational video. But that's why pretty much everything Gorosaurus ended up doing in the movie, that was meant for Baragon. Like when Gorosaurus was like burrowing through Paris. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Gorosaurus can burrow. You can dig underground with those tiny little, or maybe he's just chomping at the earth. I don't know. But yeah, that was supposed to be Baragon, but they couldn't do it with Baragon, so they just had Goro do it. So there we go. Okay, so I think we agree Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan can beat King Ghidorah. Or at least, you get where I'm coming from, at least. In a fight between King Caesar and Titanosaurus, however, I'm giving that win to Titanosaurus. I think Titanosaurus is legitimately one of the strongest kaiju from the Showa-ERA. He's about as strong as Godzilla. It could be argued he's a little stronger. It kind of goes back and forth. Take Godzilla's heat ray away, and it's probably, you're in for one hell of a good fight. And I can't see King Caesar really being able to win there. we come to Jet Jaguar versus Gabara, and you know, you could maybe argue the Ginger Ogre could potentially short circuit Jet Jaguar with its electricity, but honestly, I think JJ completely dominates Gabara, and yeah, with more heroes on the field, if JJ's in trouble anyway, a couple other kaiju could come over and make short work of Gabara. And yeah, I think a more interesting fight, Anguirus, Baragon, and Minilla teaming up on Kumonga. Yeah, I think the heroes take that win too. So if there are any objections, cool. If not, we're gonna come to the final battle. I'm gonna take myself off the screen here. Guys, I'll get back to showing pictures of the kaiju here soon, but I figured for like the set round 2 and final round for these scenarios, we didn't really need to have all the photos. But if you strongly disagree, then please, by all means, lecture me on being lazy. As a big shot YouTuber, I should have known better, but here we are. Okay, so I imagine in the final round, we have Godzilla, a fully restored Zone Fighter, Mothra, Rodan, Jet Jaguar, Anguirus, Baragon, and Minilla, and they are taking on an unfrozen Hedorah and Titanosaurus. You'll notice I have Baragon, Hedorah, and Titanosaurus crossed out here. I can't see Baragon surviving. I mean, he made it to the final round, but the moment he picks a fight with either of these two, I think he goes, he's going to end up on the obituary page. And the ones in italics, Mothra, Jet Jaguar, Anguirus, and Minilla, I'm kind of 50-50 on them making it here. Because, honestly, I feel like if Hedorah were to get its toxic grubby hands on Mothra, Mothra's in trouble. You could argue so is Rodan. You know, put him there too. Oops. I can't type. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my hair. Just a second. Let's bring this back. Let's see, how do I look? Gorgeous. Awesome. Okay. Alright.
I'm not sure I understand.
Back Siri. Bad Siri. Okay. I do think with Godzilla and Zone Fighter here, I think the two of them teaming up could take on Hedorah and finish the smog monster off. I do think Zone Fighter is crucial there. He's the key. Without him, even with Mothra, Rodan, and his allies, Godzilla would be hard-pressed to permanently put Hedorah down. You could maybe argue that they could, you know, incapacitate Hedorah long enough to get the win. That's fine. And honestly, if a Zone Fighter decided, okay, you guys can keep Hedorah busy, I'm gonna run over and you know, finish Titanosaurus off. Yeah, I think that works. I think that's how this first round ends. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an hour and a half, and we did it. We saved the day. Jet Jaguar would be proud. He would be giving us a massive thumbs up. But now, well, now we need to talk about how we think the villains could win. And don't worry, Godzilla and Stuff Productions, I'm listening. I hear ya. Zone takes Hedorah out Legend style. You know what? That's a very real possibility. Granted, I didn't say that when I was talking about the battlefields earlier. I did say the skies above Tokyo are fair game. It's kind of nebulous, though. I mean, how high up would Zone Fighter have to take Hedorah in order to freeze him? Or just, like, take him out into space and throw him into outer space? Who knows? But, anyway, an hour and a half, we finally made it to what we're all here for. Am I right? Round 1. For the scenario in which the bad guys win. In round 1, I have Mechagodzilla fighting Zone Fighter, Hedorah fighting Godzilla, King Ghidorah versus Mothra and Rodan, Titanosaurus versus Gorosaurus, which, wait a minute. Sorry, hang on. It's actually Jaguar. Just a second. And it's Gorosaurus fighting Megalon. Apologies. Kumonga versus Anguirus, Ebirah versus Baragon, King Kong and Gigan teaming up against King Caesar. Kamacuras fighting Varan, Gabara taking on Minilla. That's right, it's a rematch. And he who must not be named, the most powerful, most dangerous creature of all time, Death with Wings, the giant Condor, taking on Manda. Odie, take care, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. Alice, that's a good question. 6 foot tall Godzilla versus the animal kingdom. How would he fare? I mean, he's got a flamethrower, an atomic flamethrower, so I think he'd fare pretty well, but you never know. I mean, seeing a 6 foot Godzilla take on a hippopotamus would be quite the sight. Or a polar bear. That would be a vicious fight. Alright, let's get into it. In the first round, I have Mechagodzilla taking on Zone Fighter here. Now, I said earlier, Zone Fighter is the most powerful member of Team Hero, right? I think I would even put him a little bit above Showa Godzilla. So then, why do I think Mechagodzilla could beat Zone Fighter if I had Godzilla beating Mechagodzilla in round 1? Okay, so let me try to explain this. The main reason why is it comes down to the fact that I think Godzilla has better stamina than Zone Fighter. Zone Fighter, again, has 110 seconds before his energy runs out and he's pretty much a goner, or at least he's, well, not a goner. Here, let me rephrase that. That I don't think he would be a factor until potentially the final round. But here, I think Mechagodzilla has so much firepower that I'm not convinced that Zone Fighter is durable enough to just weather, to just, you know, bounce away from. I think Mechagodzilla's energy attacks and finger missiles are going to seriously hurt Zone Fighter, to the point where Zone Fighter is going to quickly realize he really seriously needs to finish Mechagodzilla off, or he's going to keep getting pulverized, and then time will expire and, well, he takes the L. And that's how I think this fight goes. I think Mechagodzilla overwhelms Zone Fighter with its attacks, forcing Zone Fighter's energy to expire before Zone Fighter can critically damage Mechagodzilla. That's right, you guys just saw me thinking and typing in real time. And that more or less is how I think this fight would go down. Agree or disagree? Let me know what you all think. Oh man, we're almost there. We got this. Alright, moving on to the next round, we have Hedorah taking on Godzilla. And what should not be much of a surprise, guys, I honestly think without human help, Godzilla would have unfortunately become a victim due to yet another statistic added to how many lives are lost due to pollution. I think Hedorah the Smog Monster is easily the most dangerous kaiju Godzilla has ever fought. I think he's even more dangerous than Ghidorah, and while Mechagodzilla's arsenal is just, well, scary, powerful, and destructive, I think Hedorah is like more akin to a disease that will slowly but surely rot away like everything. It would infect every single thing, and I don't think there's much else to say other than it kind of plays out similarly to the movie, but instead of the humans showing up with their fancy electrode equipment, Godzilla, well, I don't think he's going to win this. I think he's going to succumb to Hedorah's pollution. He's going to be losing more and more of his skin due to Hedorah's acidic nature. And slowly but surely, Godzilla just can't win this. Logan thinks Godzilla could win, but he would be, at the very least, mortally wounded. Yeah, I mean, Godzilla could. I mean, there are ways he might be able to win if maybe he decides to pull out his flying heat ray attack and manages to grab Hedorah and hold on and resist its acidic touch long enough to, like, fly him into outer space or something. Sure, that's a possibility, but there are other more likely outcomes where I think Hedorah just inflicts way more damage than Godzilla can dish out and take. It's a sad day. I mean, Godzilla versus the Smog Monster ends on a rather, I gotta say, it's a little depressing. You know, Godzilla, our hero, and I mean, I get it. The whole point of the movie is, you know, Godzilla and the human race putting aside their differences in order to, you know, for the greater good, right? Which is the sanctity of the planet. You know, it's the only way we're gonna solve our real world pollution problems, climate change. You know, we need to band together. But sadly, in this online YouTube internet battle, I think this ends with Hedorah taking the win, or at the very least keeping Godzilla away from making a huge difference in this fight. Okay, so more or less we already saw this fight with King Ghidorah taking on Mothra and Rodan. Not only was this the right step, I think, for the heroes to take, it's also a good tactic for the villains to take as well. Because Ghidorah's plan here is actually very similar to what Mothra and Rodan's was. Buy time for the hero, buy time for the villains, while at the same time still trying to kill them. And then, unalive, YouTube. You did not hear me say the K word. Alice writes, question, how far do you go when analyzing a movie? I mean, that depends. I'm assuming this is about power scaling or fantasy fights when it comes to this sort of thing. I kind of try and keep in mind what the filmmakers are trying to say without going overboard. Hence the whole example I used earlier where, did you know that in their midair collision from Ghidorah the three-headed monster, Rodan's head came off? Oh my gosh, he has Deadpool regeneration. No, the filmmaker's intent there was for Rodan to just collide into Ghidorah. They both fall to the ground, but Rodan realizes he's in over his head, and Ghidorah's right back on his feet, blasting away. That was the clear intent of the filmmaker, so I try to keep that in mind, while also just analyzing in a way that I think is more, I'd say, quantifiable. So even if, say, I don't want to go too overboard with my thought process here to keep moving forward, so I don't drag my own video down here, but I do try to keep in mind not only what the filmmakers want, or like what their intention is, but also acknowledging that filmmakers don't really care about this sort of thing. So I just try and look for what's consistent, and while also at the same time acknowledging there are inconsistencies. This is not rocket science. This is not like I'm not expecting like things to make perfect sense always. So I try to just try and look for what's consistent, what makes sense within the in-universe parameters, and go from there. Godzilla and Stuff Productions, thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate it. Next round, we have Titanosaurus taking on the JJ Man. Yeah, guys, not really much to go over here. I think Titanosaurus is gonna beat the robot down and just bludgeon him with superior strength and fighting skills. Yeah, I can't see JJ winning this fight. Even if I'm going forward, feel free, everybody, to like, if you have objections or anything, as always, feel free to share. In this next fight, Gorosaurus goes down hard to Megalon. I know Megalon is not that smart, but the moment he starts firing off, firing a combo of his electrical beams and napalm exploding balls, there's not going to be much poor Goro can do. And sure, you can maybe argue Gorosaurus gets in close and nails Megalon with a kangaroo kick. Sure, that might give Goro a win, but I think what's more likely going to happen here is Megalon bombards Gorosaurus to the point where there's not much Goro can do. I mean, Ghidorah indirectly made Goro keep his distance with just a single gravity beam, so I think Megalon is going to overdo it. This is Titanosaurus bias. I take that as a compliment. Alice did right. I mean, like, in terms of critiques on the story. Alice, I like that question even better. Thank you for clarifying what you mean, because for a brief second, I'm going to have a little bit of freedom from my power ranking, loving brain here. When it comes to critiquing, say, the story, insofar as analyzing a movie, first and foremost, I want to first think about just, am I going to judge a film based on its own merits, like on the story that it's trying to tell, or am I going to try and like project what I wanted the movie to do? Like, if the movie didn't do everything that I would have done, am I going to judge it in that sort of manner? And even though, yes, there are times where I do that, I do try and judge a movie based on what it is. And in order to do that, I think is the best way to actually just loving movies and expanding your I guess just your list of films that you can enjoy, as opposed to being a very I'd say a film elitist. I think it's the right approach when it comes to trying to just enjoy a work of art for what it is, as opposed to what others would like it to be to suit their own interests. And even still, I think that runs into the problem of opening up its own can of worms. So it's kind of like, what did I read recently? There was this quote where a creator, a filmmaker, author said, the moment as a creator, it's my job not to listen to those fans that basically complain about everything, because as we all know, if we were to do that, if we were to try and indulge that very fringe vocal minority, it's just going to not only come at the detriment of your project, but it's still not going to satisfy them. Okay, back to fantasy fun goodness. Kumonga versus Anguirus. Now, okay, you might think Kumonga versus Anguirus is a bit one-sided. You might be right. Honestly, I think what happens here is Anguirus is going to rush in. Kumonga is going to web up holding here and then just pump him full of her poisonous stingers, and then Anguirus is going to go nighty-night. I don't think Kumonga would kill Anguirus, but Kumonga is not the kind of foe Anguirus should be messing with on his own. Next one, we have Ebirah taking on Baragon. Yeah, so funny enough, I don't really think there's much Baragon can do here. Before, I sided with Anguirus because even without a heat ray, Anguirus still had, the jaw strength to at least forcibly remove Ebirah's most dangerous weapons, his claws. But I don't even think Baragon has that, so I think this is pretty one-sided. What do you guys think? No, some of you are too busy. Let's see. Alice says, not a statement I entirely agree with. That's fine. You're more than welcome to elaborate. Clarify which part you disagreed with. Logan thinks Anguirus has a better shot due to being too spiky. You know what? That's a pretty good, that could be the case. I don't think it's gonna work quite as well as you might think, but I think that's a good counter argument. Other than that, yeah. Logan thinks Baragon would fry that lobster. Again, I mean, it depends. I mean, I don't think Baragon's heat ray is that strong, but then again, I did give him the victory over Kamacuras, even though I think, it's not entirely due to his heat ray. I don't think Baragon's heat ray can really, give us a deep fried lobster here. I think Baragon's best way of winning this is to physically overpower the giant lobster here, but I don't think he can even do that. Alice states the part where you stated how you judge movies. Okay, what do you think is the best way of critiquing a story? Like, how do you go about analyzing a movie? I'd love to hear your input on that. Logan, oh my gosh. Look, it was magic elk and deer skin. His heat ray is great for cooking. Alright, I can't really... Alright, I can't compete against that. Okay, let's just move this over here and... Alright, there you go. That was great. Okay, we come to the next one where King Kong and Gigan team up. Now, Kong is all about team-ups here, and Kong and Gigan teaming up would be quite the sight. And unlike earlier where Kong teamed up with Hedorah, which was hurting Kong's literal health just by being in close proximity, this is far more of a fight, a kind of team-up that Kong could get behind. And let it be known, I think Kong could beat Caesar on his own. That would be one hell of a good fight. But I don't think, I think with Gigan added, it's just one-sided. I don't really think there's going to be much disagreement with this one, so I'm going to move on. Okay. I'm just realizing the big oversized image of Kamacuras here, it just looks so stupid. But anyway, I do think this is a fight that Varan can win, because I don't think Kamacuras, multiple strikes from, you know, a whole group of Kamacuras couldn't really do much to a newborn Minilla. So I don't really think they're going to be capable of, you know, a single one could do much to Varan here. Oh yeah, Joey Sol S, you wrote, I see King Caesar beating King Kong easily, but for Gigan, you know, King Caesar I think could beat Gigan, but it would be close. But with, you know, it being 2-on-1, I think it was just too much for Caesar to overcome. But yes, Varan gets a win. I'm very proud of my boy here. And now we come to what might be the best fight. Minilla taking on the Ginger Ogre himself, Gabara. Now, Minilla could win this fight. He could. I mean, he could get creative. I mean, I do believe he had Ichiro's help, if memory serves. But he could, you know, potentially come up with a win here. But honestly, okay, can we take a moment and just talk about how awesome Gabara is? How he should be brought back? Like, there's so much potential for this guy. Like, I imagine him kind of like, since he, you know, he haunts your dreams, right? He's like the kaiju equivalent to Freddy Krueger. I imagine like a supernatural, nightmarish Oni demon thing that, you know, gets its strength from like haunting the dreams of kaiju, and from there he can like take on any form he so chooses. Like, I just imagine Gabara being brought back and becoming super like OP like crazy. I mean, he better keep the red hair if he ever comes back, that's for sure, because redheads are made of so much wind. You might think I'm biased, but I'm just super educated on the topic. You could maybe argue Gabara technically doesn't exist in the physical sense because he's just a manifestation of the human boy Ichiro's imagination, right? But I like to think that Gabara is somewhere on Monster Island, but having, you know, picked a fight with, you know, he bullied Godzilla's son. And then, you know, I kind of feel like at that point Gabara is like, I better you know, travel lightly here, keep to myself. But man, Gabara is so awesome. I want him to come back so bad. He'd be cool. Next, we come to what might be the most debatable matchup here. Giant Condor versus Manda. The Giant Condor is, of course... I was gonna just repeat what I've been saying all night. You know, super OP, but not really. Honestly, I kind of feel like the Giant Condor could win this. But it's really one of those things where the Giant Condor would have to put in way more effort, more energy. But, like, Manda just needs one good bite, and I feel like that's the end of it. You know, it's that sort of, like, minimalist approach that really gives Manda the win here. But I would be open to anyone who feels like the Giant Condor could actually come away with a victory here. But, yeah. Oh, yeah, Logan, you're right. I bet Gabara and Megalon would be buddies. Oh, so for sure. Wouldn't that be a cool crossover? Like, Gabara attempts to, like, I don't know, haunt the dreams of Seatopians. Like Gabara decides, you know, the humans are boring. I'm gonna go down further into the center of the earth, and he like tries to haunt the dream, like haunt Megalon's dreams, only to discover that they have so much in common, and it becomes like a buddy comedy of some kind. Logan thinks that the Condor is going to pluck the eyes from the snake. Birds of prey eat snakes all the time. Manda isn't going to land a single shot. You know? It could be. But then again, I mean, yeah, you might have just convinced me there. Yeah, Logan, for real. I'm just gonna move it. I mean, I actually think that's the case. If this were fighting underwater, I'd say Manda has the speed to perhaps take advantage here, but they're on land. Manda moves very slow, and the Giant Condor needs a win. Okay, Logan, you changed my mind. Giant Condor wins this. Alright, this brings me to round 2 of how I think the villains can win. At this point, it's extremely one-sided. Let's take away Manda here and add Giant Condor. Okay, in round 2 here, we have Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, Titanosaurus, Megalon, and Gigan teaming up on Mothra, Rodan, and Baragon. A more creative way, a more fun discussion could be, how do we think Mothra, Rodan, and Baragon could actually beat all of these guys? But honestly, I think we all know that could be a different time. Maybe we could have a different stream where, I don't know, we pick battles that are one-sided, but then we're tasked with trying to come up with a way for the underdog to win. That would be fun. But yeah, Mothra, Rodan, and Baragon get absolutely eviscerated. But not as bad as poor Varan down here. Varan is fighting Hedorah, King Kong, Kumonga, and Giant He Who Must Not Be Named Condor. Like, it's so bad. And in the final round, guys, there's no heroes left. But believe it or not, I do think some villains die. I think King Kong, Titanosaurus, and Kumonga just, you know, they successfully make it to the final round, but they succumb to Hedorah's toxic presence. I thought that was funny. Like, can you imagine? Like, you work hard, you do a lot of heavy lifting, you play your part for your team, you make it to the final round, and right before you get the trophy, one of your own teammates kill you. Like, I mean, unalive you, got you. YouTube, stop listening. I think that's just funny to me. So, all right, guys. We made it to the final verdict. So after going through who I think would win, let me bring myself back here. Okay, so let's go over this. So I just talked about how I think the heroes could win, and then I explained how I think the villains would win. But overall, who do I think would win, like, for realsies? Like, just in an all-out fight between good and evil, or some evil kaiju are not actually evil, but they're there because they don't like Godzilla, whatever. Who do I think would actually take the win here? And so what I did is I went through and figured out, like, how I did the final tally here would be based on how many wins I would award each kaiju, each participant, based on could they beat the other side one-on-one. So for example, Zone Fighter, I gave 12 wins because I think one-on-one he could beat anyone on Team Villain, yes, including Mechagodzilla. Granted, I think Mechagodzilla would take the majority win, but we're not looking at majority wins here. We're just looking at just one win. Is it possible? And then I also gave Godzilla 11 wins. I think he would lose against Hedorah. Logan, fight me. You've already changed my mind. You brought us to the winning side. You helped me see the light. That is our winged god, the giant Condor. So I feel like you're close to convincing me that Godzilla might be able to win here against Hedorah. So anyway, I hope that all makes sense, because when we come down to the final tally, here's what we got, guys. Drum roll. Villain total wins, 86 wins. Hero total wins, 86 wins. We have ourselves a tie. Oh my god. No. Out of all that, we got ourselves a tie. Oops, I brought myself back up here, in case you guys want to look at this. Now, I think, like, Jaguar came up with, like, 9 wins. I don't think he could beat Mechagodzilla, Hedorah, or King Ghidorah. But I think you could maybe argue he might be able to sneak a win against King Kong. Again, majority wins are not a factor here. I'm just looking at, like, can this monster beat this other monster potentially? Is there a chance? And I'm still, Logan, I'm waiting on you, man. Godzilla, can he potentially come up with a win against Hedorah to win, solidify, and give Team Hero that one win that they need for complete victory? But then again, I am doing a completely different sort of way of determining victory here. So, as Logan points out, even if Godzilla were to win against Hedorah, with Baragon and Varan on his side, he cannot win because of the combined might of Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, Kong, and Hedorah. So, I will point out, though, that despite all this, I had, because I'm a genius, predicted the response from some of you as it relates to poor King Kong. I anticipated that. I knew that was coming. So, I have something else. I have a surprise for y'all that are still here. Are you guys ready for it? All right. Here you go. What if King Kong switched sides? There he is right there. Hey, look at him. Yeah, as Logan pointed out, even if Godzilla did beat Hedorah, he would still be dying after his after the fight. So, all right, good. That makes me feel a little bit better about that tie and for why we have come to this point. What if King Kong switched sides? He is now a force for good. Godzilla and Kong have put aside their differences. What do we got now? How does this change things? Oh man, we're not going to go into much of the deep end there, but here's where things change. Remember how we kept seeing King Ghidorah taking on Mothra and Rodan, and how this was absolutely pivotal for both sides? It was a good tactic for the heroes. It was a good tactic for for the villains. Overall, it's a stratagem that if Ghidorah were to win against Mothra and Rodan, it would most absolutely guarantee the villain's victory. But if Mothra and Rodan, if the heroes were able to stop King Ghidorah in the first round, like put him down for good, it seriously would change everything. And this is not a mid-villain fight. This isn't happening like near the end of the battle, Logan. I mean, that would be interesting and we could talk about that. But I mean, like, from the beginning, what if we show, like, this is about to go down in Tokyo, and then Kong took a big look at his side and went, y'all are nuts, and somehow knew, hey, that smog monster over there, he makes me feel sick. I'm coughing. I'm not gonna be on that guy. But I think with Kong joining the side of the heroes and joining forces with Mothra and Rodan, here's why this changes everything. So Kong has a unique ability to absorb and weaponize electricity. And Ghidorah's beams, despite being called gravity beams, they're electrical based. They're going to make Kong stronger. And with Mothra and Rodan at his side, I think these three can put an end to Ghidorah before the end of round 1. And that's why I think juicing Kong up is the best stratagem the heroes can take. Because think about it. With Ghidorah removed from the board early, we go into round 2 where now you have Rodan, Mothra, and Kong. We can unleash them. We can set them loose. I think Kong would go after Gabara, who has more electricity for Kong to use to siphon away. I think at this point, if Godzilla still hasn't stopped Mechagodzilla, or he is deeply struggling, now you have Mothra, Rodan there to come in and help him out. Yeah, I think this is a way for the final round. I think this is the best way that the heroes can actually come out on top, and this is how I imagine the final round to go, where we have Godzilla, Kong, Zone Fighter, Mothra, Rodan, Jet Jaguar, Anguirus, King Caesar, Baragon, and Minilla all teaming up against Hedorah. Now you'll notice most of these guys at the bottom, they have X's, because I don't think they're going to survive despite making it to the final round. Zone Fighter, it's kind of a mystery because he could be recharging, and Hedorah is slowly, I'd imagine Zone Fighter frozen previously, but now Hedorah is unthawing. So it's up in the air, but I think even without Zone Fighter, the heroes now have a chance, and it's because of Kong, the 8th wonder of the world. Kong, full of electricity, the very thing that greatly weakens, that dehydrates Hedorah to the point where Godzilla can now stomp the literal pollution, mud, whatever you want to call it, out of him. Like, just literally beat the stuffing and just tear Hedorah to pieces. like he did at the end of the movie. Which brings me to the final tally, with Kong joining the heroes' sides. You know, Kong switching sides gives the heroes a win. A few days ago, I started a poll where I asked my community to let me know who they think would win. The majority of you chose the winners, the heroes. I don't really think it's so cut and dry, because I think the villains have quite a number of power, heavy hitters on their side. But yeah, I do think the heroes could inch out the villains and come up with a win here, and this is how not only do I think they would do it, I also think King Kong would switch sides and become the main catalyst for Earth, not only having its champions saving the day, but, well, giving us a lot to talk about. Alright guys, I think that's it. That's all I got. Let me know what you think, if you enjoyed this. Would you want to see something similar for, I don't know, the Showa Gamera? No, that would be a bit one-sided, right? With Gamera being the only hero. What about Heisei? What if we did a Heisei Godzilla Rumble with the heroes versus villains, or the, you know, what would be considered a hero? Anyone that's not Space Godzilla, I guess. But yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this. Thank you so much, everyone. Joey, thank you for being here. Alice, Logan, a couple shout outs to others who were part. Let me scroll up here. Odie, of course, and Godzilla and Stuff Productions. Thank you. You guys were great. Thanks for being here and chiming in. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time too. But yeah, that's all I got. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am Tom here at Kaijutopia. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Leaving a like would be cool. And also, if you really agree, disagree, feel free to write a comment explaining how you think this would go down. I really enjoy reading your comments. I take them to heart. I mean, even throughout the stream, I know I put on a show, a performance, but I really, I think these sort of discussions are fun for a reason, and there are so many different variables. So if you feel like, hey, listen, I don't think this would go down this way, or I disagree with you, cool. I really want to hear from you too. So feel free to share. But otherwise, everyone, take good care.